Hello, everyone. Welcome. Please say hello if you are joining us today for our discussion of In the Hand of the Goddess by Tamora Pierce. This is book 2 in the Song of the Lioness quartet and part of a much larger tortallan universe series. I know, Victoria, we have matching sets, but they're different sets.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
You each have a box set, but they're different covers.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm guessing this is probably the newer one.
Probably. Mine's not.
Emily.
Emily.
Hi, Emily. Welcome. I was looking forward to hearing from you. Yeah, this is part of a much larger Tortallan universe series, and Emily pointed out on our announcement video, actually, that there's even more books set in Tortal. But after a year, I thought, okay, that's probably enough books. A year is probably long enough. So, but yeah, anyways, let's jump into it. So,
Okay.
Everybody, please share your thoughts as we are putting the questions up, because we would really love to hear from you. So, why don't we start off with like a brief non-spoilery summary. We'll try to start off with not a non-spoiler section, which I forgot to do last time. And also I want to know, do you guys feel like this is a cozy fantasy? Would you describe it that way? Yeah, so does anyone want to start with like a brief descriptor, or I can just do it? Whatever.
It's so hard to describe a second book in this non-spoilery way.
Yeah. I think it just continues on with Alana's quest to become a knight. Still, we pick up almost exactly where we left off. It's like maybe a year later or something like that. And she is still out to protect the royal family. Still out to learn what the goddess says and how to follow that. And so I don't think that there's too much that changed, and I would not call this a cozy fantasy.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think it's a cozy fantasy by like the current cozy fantasy definition. Because I don't think cozy fantasy was even really a term like when these were written. So it doesn't like follow that like formula exactly that we associate now, I think. Like Emily said, there's still big stakes in the overall plot. There's still like a big bad guy, you know. I think some of those things are not as present in like a cozy fantasy as we are defining it now.
I think too that in a cozy fantasy, you wouldn't expect the kind of torturous almost feel to that happens with some of the characters. It's a little too intense, I think, for cozy.
Oh, interesting. That's true. There's some war happening in this book. So I don't know. Can you make war cozy? Probably not. That's a really good point. Interesting. So
slice of life. That's probably, that's true.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think if we were concentrating just on Alana and Faithful in this, and it was just the two of them that we were concentrating on, and not the royal family and the peace treaty and all of these bigger things, then it would probably be more of a cozy style of fantasy.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, the inclusion of a talking cat kind of fooled me for a little while. I thought, how
The
can we have-
talking cat is I feel like a very cozy element, and it adds some coziness.
Mhm.
I loved the talking cat.
Mhm. Yeah, me too.
Interesting. Okay, and I think Emily points out it feels cozy because we have fond memories of it. That's a really good point. Nostalgic. It feels very nostalgic. Would you say like the first one would be cozy, or not really in that case either?
No, because it feels like it's the beginning of something epic.
Mhm.
Oh, interesting. So epic and cozy don't really mix.
No, I wouldn't say so.
Thank you.
This is definitely more YA, I would say. Like, we are definitely no longer middle grade from book
Yeah,
one.
I would agree.
So I think that's probably the change in feel and tone.
Okay. Very interesting. Excellent. And yes, I think it's a good assumption to make that whoever is here has probably already read book one. So we probably don't have to worry about spoiling book one when we're describing it. But yeah, I think Dia did a perfect job. So thank you. So awesome. Let me see if I had any more notes on that. Yeah, and Alana is a teenager in this book, so there's more romance, and it no longer feels like a school book. So those are some of the things that sort of distinguish book two, and we'll talk about more of the differences very soon. But first, before we go into more of the spoilery stuff, what rating would you guys give book two?
I didn't like it as much as book one, so I would have to go lower than my rating on book one. So I would probably say like a 2 3/4, 3-star.
So that's fairly low, but it's still like it zone or like below.
It feels like a middle book syndrome book to me. So yeah, there's too many. It feels like a lot of subplots that are strung together. That's what it feels like. So
oh, interesting. Emily doesn't even feel like Faithful is really a cozy character. This is true.
I think he is funny though.
He is. I think so. I think just the fact that he's a cat feels cozy, but I think Emily and I know more about Faithful, and so we are seeing into the future as well with him. So
well, he didn't like my comment about the book though.
Yeah. I know, because I thought you liked it, so I was not expecting 2 3/4. But honestly, that's still like I like it range. It's like a lower like it, but on Goodreads, 3 is still liked it, so that's still pretty deep. That's okay for a book 2 and it's 4-book series.
What about you, Victoria?
Yeah, what do you think?
On Goodreads, I rounded it to 4, but it's really for me probably like a 3.5 is where it sits in my head. Yeah, I think I had more to criticize this time around than the first book. There was more that didn't sit right with me, and also I agree with Dia of like the plot, the subplots, and like cohesiveness, feeling like it was not quite as a clear direction, and that I felt like the author is growing the world, and she's making like the world is becoming bigger. It didn't always, it felt kind of clunky sometimes of how we were getting places and things were being revealed. And I had a lot of criticisms of the romantic elements part of it too. It didn't kill the book for me, but I would say it definitely, like, it didn't all sit right in what is a YA book. It just like some things I don't like to see in YA books.
I can feel that. I feel like in this series, I always think there's a lot of kind of debut author flaws, and part of it is in the setup even in the first book. So I kind of feel that. I was sort of, I would say around 3.75 as well. For me, it was probably about my rating. But I just had such a good time with it too, even though I had a whole list of criticisms. I have like a gigantic list of criticisms, but there was also so much that I loved. So I just had a lot of strong feelings about it. So I had to go with the 3.75 because it was overall a lot more positive than negative, but still there was a lot of negative things to talk about. So
I entirely agree. I feel the same way. Like there's still so much that I like and I want to be in the world, and I'm still enjoying being in the world. It's just there was a lot more that kind of like little by little started sinking it down as I was reading. Which was a bummer.
Yeah, because I talked to you earlier this week and you were like, I'm loving it, like as much as the first book, maybe more.
Yeah, I liked the beginning until things started kind of to develop more, and I was like, oh no.
I feel like I was like 3/4 of the way through the book before I was like, oh, I didn't remember the use of the word like stalking, for instance. I mean, there was like some stuff that I was like, wow, okay. All right, so we're gonna have to talk about those things. Yes, I agree. Some parts are clunky, but she just has so much talent there, and you can tell, even though there's some like problems with it, there's also like.
So. And if I could add to that too, I think in this book now, knowing that it was supposed like she wanted it to be an adult series, I think this is the book where it started to be more obvious, and it started to suffer because I think some of the things that she put in would have been more acceptable in an adult series, and I may have forgiven them more, but because it's in a young adult series, I'm harsher on it being there, So I think that's also where it kind of hurt it.
Would you say it's misclassified as young adult?
No, I just wish that she had been able to do what she wanted with her series, because it seems like she was pressured by the publisher and by her editors to market it a certain way when that's not what she intended for the story. And I can definitely see this being just all of it just working better in an adult series if she had been allowed to do that.
Yeah, I know. It was shocking to me even when I was a teenager, which was like 20 years ago now, when I realized just how extremely pushy on the issue of like sex in particular, the young adult genre was. And this was 20 years ago. This book is almost 50 years old. But I think librarians and publishers who are publishing for teens have always really tried to push the envelope, partly because they're trying to grab a teenager's attention, but partly because that's how they feel about teens. They feel like teens are sexual beings and need to know about sex. And so, yeah, I definitely feel like, I mean, this to me is like nothing compared to what's published now, but back then,
I do that all the time. I do that when I'm filming videos. I will hit myself with a book.
It's a weapon. I'm glad it hit my glasses, because otherwise it would have hit my face. But anyways, I feel like back then, I don't know, were there things being published like this? I'm just like, wow, pretty shocking that. But anyways, yeah, there's some stuff. So we're going to have to talk about that. Yes, both from George and Jonathan. Okay, yeah, maybe we should move out of this non-spoilery section, because I feel like we're getting real close. So spoiler warning, if you haven't read books 1 or book 2, we are going to go into some spoilers. You're welcome to stay. And if you're watching this on replay later on, you can always pause it and come back. But you're welcome to stay and discuss with us. So, okay. So let's talk about some of the differences between In the Hand of the Goddess and Alana the First Adventure, because we already talked on some of them. Like, clearly Alana's a teenager. She has a romance developing for the first time in this one. Are there any other differences that you guys wanted to talk about?
It moves very fast. I think the timeline in general in this book, whereas in the other book, it felt like, you know, we were just with her and things were moving, but they were moving at just kind of a normal life pace. And this one has big time jumps. So there's that. I think she feels very much more assured of herself in this book than she did in the last book, which you would expect, you know, so that was good. I'm looking at my notes. And yeah, I think that there's also a definite tone shift in the book, like we were talking about earlier. It definitely has moved into the upper YA category rather than the younger YA that the first one felt like.
Oh, interesting. Oh, so yeah, when we talked in the first live show, you were feeling like the series is like, oh, age 14, somewhere around there. But on reread, are you thinking from book 2 on, it needs to be higher than age 14?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would say 17, 18 at the youngest.
Oh, wow. So when I read it at 12, apparently I was reading way over my age.
I think the reason for that, though, is just because of the content. If it didn't have the sexual relationship in it, then I wouldn't feel that way. But it's just because of the fact that it moves into that. So, yeah.
Okay, interesting. And what how about you, Victoria? What are some of the differences, if you have any that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think we've already kind of touched on the main ones. I think like Alana herself and what she's exploring and going through. And also I felt like her growth is really big in the first book too, but I felt like where we are at the beginning of book 2 and where we are at the end, I feel like it's been an even bigger change for Alana in her own confidence and her using her abilities, her being able to conquer, like truly conquer like the biggest foe in her life and in other people's lives around her as well. Like Alana accomplishes something really big by the end of this book. And so I feel like there was a very big growth arc for her.
She actually wants to be a girl by the end of the book.
Yeah,
she didn't.
Right. Yeah, and the exception, she's accepting. Beginning to. I feel like she's not fully accepted yet, but she's beginning to accept who she is as a girl, and that she's going to have to grapple with being a girl and be a knight in her world. So she's beginning to think about, okay, what is that going to look like? Because now my family and friends, they know I'm a girl, and like the big reveal is out there, you know. So she's gonna have to go forward in her role very differently.
It didn't feel like as big of a reveal because so many people already knew.
Yeah,
George, his mom, Jonathan, Miles basically knew, even though, you know. So it didn't feel like as big of a reveal as what it could have been, you know. So
yeah, I like that. I think as a reader, it's kind of like we know that people are perceiving her more as a girl, and we're starting to see like, oh, all these people already know this. But I feel like Alana doesn't realize how many people really already know. And so you kind of see her realize that at the end. In their reaction, they kind of react to her like she thinks it's going to be a big deal, but they're like, oh, you know what? Not that explains everything now, and like you're still our friend. I loved that they still accept her, and they're still like, you're still part of us, and you're still our friend, and we still love you. I really liked how that was done, actually.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh yes, the scene with Gary. That part, I loved that. That also made it feel super cozy to me. The fact that she now has so many friends on her side and Gary literally just laughs about it. And I feel like John took it like very like, yeah, whatever, of course, that's fine. It didn't even seem like he was that shocked. George was the one who was like, what? Yeah, what were you saying something?
I was going to say, didn't Jonathan find out in the last book?
Yeah.
Like when they were camping together. Yeah.
Yeah. Jonathan is, I guess, the first main person or main friend of hers to know.
For me, it was a relief that the people closest to her knew because anytime there are like, oh, there's a secret, I'm not really who I say that I am, that stresses me out a little bit as a reader. So for me, it was like, okay, cool. At least the closest people to her know. But yeah, she still feels like, also it feels like the castle to me feels like a cozy house, kind of a thing. So these are things I had in my brain going forward, but I think it's because I kind of know the ending of things, so I'm not like stressed. So, okay. This is helpful, Emily, as a teacher, the kinds of things that you actually read with your teens. I feel like there are series that are fine out there for sure. And there's just some real big exceptions and books that are pushed majorly where, it's very much pushing the envelope, but it's good to hear.
I'm not familiar with those things, but I'm guessing there is a lot of content.
Oh, really?
V.C. Andrews, especially.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so she's saying maybe this is
what nothing. She's saying this is nothing.
Nothing.
Oh, okay. I don't even know what these are. I've never heard of them.
Okay. V.C. Andrews, Flowers in the Attic. V.C. Andrews.
Oh, I've seen the book cover, but I don't know anything about it. Is it horror?
It's not only horror, it's sexual horror.
Oh.
Children being hid in an attic and being used for
wow.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh. So I'm looking at the covers for the Twisted Game series, and I'm like, this is like straight up adult romance covers. Like, wow, okay. Okay, all right. Well, that's disheartening, and I guess not surprising. That's
Alana is very tame by today's standards of what high schoolers are reading.
Exactly. So it's more like some of the attitudes are outdated in Alana. That's more what bothered me. Some of the attitudes of what they think is sexy almost is like, oh, okay, that's not sexy now.
Yeah, that's true too.
Which is true in like any old romance novel almost, where it's like not like classics. Classics are a little more tasteful, I think. They still reflect their time, but they're more timeless. Whereas like genre romance from the 50s or something, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty toxic. So, okay, excellent. I also wanted to mention, I feel like we touched on how she's growing and becoming more confident. I also feel like she's learning how much people care for her and vice versa.
Yeah.
She's naturally very independent because of how she grew up with her father not even paying any attention to her. But she's learning how to rely on others and realizing that they're relying on her and that she likes it, that she likes having those relationships. And people are like pouring into her as a person, and she's still like why though, you know? And John's like, it's because we all love you, of course, you know? So that's a difference, I feel like, in the first book, where she was just handling things on her own at that point. Like Rowland, the only help, she asked for help from a couple people, but she was like not demanding things from, you know, not making demands on other people's time. Whereas in this case, I feel like there was more, she accepted big gifts and, you know, things like that. So she's growing in her ability to give and receive love, which was nice. It bothered me a little bit that it was so tied to sex, love was, but there's plenty of relationships also that aren't tied to sex where they're saying care. But yeah, as a 15-year-old, the goddess telling Alana, you know, would it be so bad if you were sleeping with Prince Jonathan? And I'm like, as a 15-year-old, yes, that would have been bad. John was an adult, you know, so
that was the first like early hint that I had of like, oh no, I see where we're gonna go in this book.
yeah.
That was the first like tick against it, was her encounter with the goddess and the goddess encouraging that, and I was like, it's too bad. It's too bad we had to put that in.
Right.
Oh, I forgot to mention this too. Emily mentioned that she's beginning to see her magic as powerful. I feel like somebody said that. And yes, she's beginning, like in the war, she used it to the point where she ran out and she overused it, which I feel like in the past, what she would have been terrified of. But she learns how to deal with that, you know, when she encounters that problem and how to avoid it in the future. So
she still doesn't like it though.
Yeah, she still doesn't like it. Yeah, very true. Yes. Okay. I wanted to point this out too, because I have more questions that are kind of about this. But yeah, at the time, you could be an adult at 15 and a mother and married. So it does feel like time period appropriate in that sense. It is medieval times. It's very different. And I feel like kids do grow up faster. We don't really want them to have to, but kids do grow up faster with like neglectful parents. And in her case, being that at 18, she would have all of this power to choose right and wrong in society and enforce those ideas. She does develop independence very young. And so it does make kind of sense in that context to me. So that's a really good point.
But at the same time, she also says she's never going to be married. She never wants to have a family.
Mm-hmm.
And yet she wants to jump in and have sex. Yeah. Anyway, it just didn't sit right with me. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think more than ever, I thought about like as I was going through, would I want my teenage daughter, if I had a teenage daughter, would I want my teenage daughter to read this at this age, like around this age? And I think I was landing on no, probably not. I wouldn't recommend this series to this age,
Right.
which is again where I think that's where this book broke down for me.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, it's no longer age appropriate.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I think yeah. Oh shoot, where was I going to go with that? I don't know. It just fled my brain. So I'll just keep going on. Okay. What bothered me is how it seemed okay that Jonathan would have other sexual partners, but Alana, nope. Yeah, his attitude
I really disliked that was happening with Jonathan too, and that we really just brush over that, and it is just kind of just accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And Alana still just fawns over him, and I really disliked that element.
I felt like the relationship stuff felt kind of realistic to me in the kind of ups and downs, but because we didn't spend a lot of time on the downs, it didn't wear me out like relationship drama can in a book. I feel like in a lot of modern books, we spend a lot more time on and we're not speaking anymore, you know, and I don't know, just the tiffs that you go through. Whereas Alana just kind of talks to Mistress Cooper, I think it is, who she's having a conversation with it about. So I felt like a lot of that was kind of realistic, but so that part didn't bother me as much. But overall, it's a very secular view of sex, and it's not a modern secular view even. It's like an outdated secular view. So I think that's where a lot of us are encountering these issues. It's both very secular and outdated.
It felt almost what's the word I'm looking for? Like they were pushing themselves on her, but then getting upset when there's a gnat in here. So if you see me going like this, that's why. So anyway, it felt like when she was doing what she needed to do in order to keep up the ruse, like dancing with girls, or or being one of the boys and laughing together with some other guys and stuff, then these ones that supposedly love her are getting jealous and saying things that are just mean, or pushing themselves on her in the way that George did when he was like, well, you can't escape me, I'm just going to kiss you.
Yeah, right, there's a lack of consent happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
From both guys have consent issues.
Yeah, everything that is quote unquote romantic, until Alana opens the door into Jonathan's room. Everything that happens up until that point happens to Alana. It's not her saying yes to something. No, it's being perpetrated upon her. And so that felt just yuck also.
Yeah. I liked George up until he gave her something to drink.
Oh, and, drugged her?
Knocked her out. Yeah. Then I was like, okay, George, no, that's no.
Yeah.
But before that, I was rooting for George.
I know, that was a little crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another element. I was just like, why did we have to do that?
Yeah, that was wild. I feel like possibly at this time in history, we already had. We have now. I guess we have. What do you call it? It's like the shades of gray style of sexuality. But I feel like that was a lot of those elements were already more common back then. It wasn't like women didn't necessarily have a choice in those things, or it was considered romantic still. Whereas now it's like, women, you need to ask the woman first before you do some of those things. So yeah, it's like pretty outdated in a lot of those sensibilities. So why don't we move on to talking about some things that oh wait, I feel like I had more differences to talk about. So yeah, more focus on the cover animal, which was nice because as Dia pointed out, the first book had a horse. There was like no horse, but there was a lot of Faithful in this one. So I thought, oh, that's a fun difference.
More Faithful. That's what I want.
Yes, more Faithful. I think Faithful is my favorite part of this book.
Yeah, mine too. Absolutely.
And also, I thought it was really fun getting Duke Roger's perspective. Because for the first time, I think in the first book, we see from Maud's perspective very briefly. We see from Corm's perspective very briefly in the beginning. I can't remember if there's anybody else's perspective that we see from, but it's very brief. And it's fairly brief as well in this book, being in Duke Roger's head, but there were some fun details shared, like the fact that the first time he touched lightning, his arm was numb for a week. That was kind of fun. So
yeah, I agree. I think Duke Rogers is like, he's like a very formidable villain. and I mean, it's like a very obvious villain, like mustache twirling villain, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But like it does feel like Alana really does overcome something when she overcomes him, when she defeats him.
Mm.
And yeah, he's just like, and he's also just like so snaky. Because
Yeah.
he is like in the politics, and like like you know what he wants,
Mhm.
and it's just like, why isn't this obvious to everybody else?
Yeah,
It's obvious to some people,
that
but it's like
kind of actually bugged
really
me.
obvious.
That she has these people that say that they love her, and yet nobody wants to listen to her about this thing that she really strongly feels. They
Mhm.
know she has a connection to the goddess. They know
Mhm.
that she has this magic, um, that she feels things and sees things, and yet they don't want to listen when she brings up Duke Roger, especially Jonathan.
Mhm.
I'll sleep with you, but I don't want to listen to you when you think that my life is in danger.
Yeah, I feel like everybody, their vision was, impeded by the bag. It's a
Mhm.
very convenient magical solution because throughout the book, you just are like, why? It's really obvious to the reader.
Mhm.
I feel like kind of what's going on here. Duke Roger is trying to become
Yeah.
king. Like,
Right.
why can't anybody else see this?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
feel like,
and I understand the magical veil and all of that. I just wish that there would have been a strong enough relationship that it would have kind of pulled them out from the veil, so to speak.
Mhm.
Like, that would have rent the veil. That
Oh.
you know what I mean?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like it wasn't handled the best. That to me was probably the most clunky thing because the reader is not surprised by the ending of this book. Like pretty
Mhm.
much, there's a little bit of surprise. Like the veil, that was a surprise. Exactly the mechanics of that, but I feel like a lot of it wasn't, and so you're just kind of waiting for everybody else to put the pieces together, and you're kind of wondering. It kind of goes back and forth. Like Alana goes back and forth about whether she knows it or not. Like she just hates the guy and she suspects him at times and then she'll just kind of forget about it. And I just felt like that part was pretty clumsy. Unfortunately for me, that was one of my criticisms about it.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure how I felt about, like, basically he had voodoo dolls essentially at
Right.
the end.
Yeah.
And I was
Exactly.
like, wait, he's just doing voodoo? Like, I was like, this is a strange element of the magic system.
Yeah.
The the
He spent time in
defeat.
another nation, and I think the other nation is kind of voodoo
uh
is a thing, and so where he was living before he came to Tortal, that's like sort of the kind of magic they would have there.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I
Okay.
guess I didn't realize that.
I didn't
Well,
realize
you
that
wouldn't,
either.
you wouldn't. Yeah, no, there's no reason why you would know that yet. That I just happened to know that. So, yeah.
The defeat of Roger, I didn't feel was enough.
Yeah,
I
it
wanted
disappeared
more.
quickly, yeah. I
I
was
just
actually surprised too about that, Dia, because I was like, we haven't defeated Roger, and there's only like a little bit left of the book,
right.
and
Mm.
it all wraps up so quickly, um, and I feel like we could have had more of a conflict there. I feel like it happened really
It
fast.
felt like it took so long to build, and it was building and it was building and building and building, and then it was just like, "Whoop."
And
Done.
he's defeated. Yeah, yeah,
There was no like big explosive moment or anything like that. It was just like,
yeah.
and he's done.
I was thinking that actually he wouldn't be defeated because of how little I had left in the book. I was like,
Yeah.
surely Roger's just gonna get away, like, because I was like, there's only like this much left.
Yeah. So
Mimi
interesting.
stopped in. Hi, Mimi. I would say
Oh,
probably her audience is more female than male. I've never really
Okay.
talked to a man who's read them. But it's refreshing to hear that there was a man reading them. That's nice to hear. I'm glad. Emily sees your point.
Yeah, I was surprised that he was defeated because of how little page time we had left.
I think, again, this might be a weakness of it being written as a whole book. And so, whereas it's kind of the breaks in the volumes are a bit unnatural. If you know the whole story, it'll make a lot more sense, the pacing of all that.
That makes sense too.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the problems we have are thanks to the editor. Thanks,
Yeah,
editor.
and that's kind of what I mean by there are all these subplots that don't feel completely resolved. They're just strung together to make this book. That's the reason why it didn't feel
it doesn't feel like one cohesive volume.
Right.
It feels like part of a larger piece.
Yeah, again, I just wish she had been allowed to do what she wanted to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like in other series, other book series, a lot of these problems are resolved. And so I feel like, again, a lot of it is debut problems and a lot of it is because of how she was shelved, the differences between how she wrote it and how it was published. Whereas in future books, she knows her audience, I feel like, a lot better. And she knows that she's going to be writing quartets. And so I just feel like future books are just so much better than this first series in those elements. Yeah, me too. I wish I kind of really. That's interesting.
I didn't know that.
That is interesting.
I didn't remember reading that. But there was in this book as well. There was another afterword in this one that was different from the book from the afterword in the first book. And I'm like, oh, this is all so interesting and new. She really reveals a lot of her thoughts going into it in the afterwards, which is helpful. Because she's like, I want to write a female heroine who is attracted to men, because there weren't that many. Like, she's like, we have, lesbian fantasy characters, we have celibate fantasy female characters, but we don't have any female fighting characters currently who also like men, like who are like me, essentially. So she went into this series planning to have adult relationships with men portrayed. And so that's why it was so shocking to her that it would be published as young adult, and shocking to us even today.
Yeah, I enjoy her afterwards. I'm hoping that there's also afterwards after every book in these, because they're always very enlightening. And I think she succeeded in writing Alana the way she wanted to write Alana. And I still think that's the main strength of these books, and what endears me to them is still Alana. And so I feel like she was successful in that. It's just, I don't always agree with what she has Alana do and experience.
Right.
But I think Alana herself is still an excellent character and well fleshed out.
Yeah.
Oh, and with Tom. Oh, interesting. Okay. That makes actually more sense for future books. I did not remember that. Okay. Excellent. Interesting. Well, he is a best dressed kind of a guy. So maybe
he's a little flamboyant. Yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Thank you for doing extra research for us, Emily. Okay, let me see. Was there any other differences? I wanted to talk about war. We covered that, war being depicted, and also we know who the antagonist is now. Okay, so why don't we talk about some of the things that we liked about the book? Obviously, we like Faithful. Was there anything else? And Alana, Victoria liked Alana. Okay, cool.
I still like Alana. Yeah, I still think she's a worthwhile heroine to follow.
Still love George's mother.
George's mom.
I just love her. And although I will say I didn't love the magical don't get pregnant potion.
Yeah.
But wait, you're not going to get married. You're not going to start a family. Why not just be celibate? But yeah, I get it. Be attracted to men, but don't sleep with them.
Yeah, it's very secular, it's very post-pill type of a fantasy where people feel like sex has no downsides, I guess. If you want to go out and have sex, like there's no downside to that anymore because we have the pill, which isn't true. We know that's actually not true, but especially early post pill, I feel like women maybe thought that, as well. I feel like now maybe there's more of a movement to recognize women experience sexuality differently than men, and most women are not highly sociosexual, wanting multiple partners throughout their life. Most of them do not want that. So yeah. Yeah. I feel like this is like an earlier wave of feminism. I kind of so.
I still love Miles.
Yeah. Miles is still great.
He is amazing. I loved him. He's probably next to Alana and Faithful, he's probably my favorite character. I just love it.
We love Miles.
Yeah, and I like that Miles also is probably one of the adults who has the most influence in Alana's life, and he does not reject her by finding out officially that she is a girl.
Yeah,
I think that's something I really did like about this, is that her people stay her people when they find out about her. And I thought that was really nicely done by Tamora Pierce.
Yes.
I agree.
I feel like Alana makes true friends in the palace and also on the battlefield. And that was one of the more heartwarming aspects of the book. Okay. Miles and him stopping Jonathan from telling him. Oh yeah, Miles being like, I respect her right to tell me this, basically.
Right.
This is not your secret to tell.
That's right. Yeah, I love that moment too.
Oh, that's a good point, Emily. Yeah, she needs that charm to protect her from pregnancy.
Oh yeah, for that reason. That's true.
Female warriors, probably most female warriors, are also on some type of birth control, so that makes sense. But it wasn't pre-AIDS. Good point. So even back then, this wasn't like great practice. I guess she's assuming, hopefully, that Jonathan hasn't caught anything. There is no discussion.
Well, except for the time period that she's writing it in is like, it feels medieval almost. Yeah. So that's pre-AIDS.
Yes, that's true. The time period is pre-AIDS.
Yeah.
It wasn't it's so interesting. This just occurred to me. We don't talk about STDs at all in this book series. So for all of her talk about, wanting to include sex in the books and how teens are interested in that kind of thing, why wouldn't you talk about the downsides of that too? Like beyond just the emotional fragility that a girl can feel in that situation, like, why wouldn't we talk about the danger of STDs? Does she have an STD repellent charm too? No, it's just to repel pregnancy. So, yeah, interesting. I never thought of that till just now.
Yeah, it's not pre-syphilis, Emily.
Pre-syphilis. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
It's so true.
But Tamora is advocating no protection to her young readers. The skill.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, she should have probably thought of that a little bit. Like, if you have your goddess telling your 15-year-old to go have sex, why wouldn't she also be like, but choose your partners very wisely because there are these things called STDs. There's this thing called syphilis that you don't
when
want.
was this published again? It was 1970s. When
I think
this
it was 82 was the first one, and
82 was the first one. Okay,
something like that.
okay.
It says 84 was
84.
this one.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. So okay, let me see here. Okay, what did we like? Let me see, what else did I like? I really liked how well Alana knows herself and her goals, and how she communicates those goals to people who care about her. Like when George, for example, proposes to her, she's like, I don't want to be married. I feel like you should know this about me. You know, and also I feel like there was other situations when I wrote that I was thinking of, but I can't think.
Yeah. She stands up for herself, and she also holds firm to when people like don't believe her about Duke Roger and stuff. Like she doesn't just go like, well, maybe I'm wrong, you know. She holds firm to what she really thinks and believes.
Yes. And I feel like the way at the end she stands up and reveals the truth about Duke Roger was like, yes. I found that extremely like, yes. I loved the ending. I thought the ending was like probably the strongest part of the book, aside from Faithful. How all of that went down, like I was like riveted to the page, and I just thought, how bold do you have to be to go and reveal that in front of everybody that way, and then also have your sex revealed at the same time, like yeah. And it's not like she was apologizing. She was just like, you wouldn't have let me become a knight if you knew who I was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think you can definitely admire her fearlessness, and you see her be more fearless at the end. Mm-hmm. And she's like, no, like this is I'm standing up for what's right. And he is not doing right things. He is against the king. He is against you all. Like she's no fainting flower with what she believes.
Yes, exactly. And I love the shield she gets from Tom as well. That was really cool. I like that
on the cover of the next book, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. I don't have the third book with me right now, but it is. Yes, it's very exciting. Let's see. Oh, I liked that the chamber, how it forces her to face all her fears until like the breaking point, until she's able to overcome them, because that can give her confidence in the future. Like, I faced these things, I know how to overcome them, and it sort of takes the edge off your fear if you faced the worst, because she knows I could die in the chamber, and so the fact that she's able to overcome her fears, I liked how that was done. It's like the final preparation for knighthood. Although in a future book series, I like it even better how the chamber is handled in a future book series. But this was a good kind of a bare bones start to it. And I liked the trek to visit Tom. I thought Tom is a really interesting and unique character in this book.
I want to learn more about Tom.
Yeah, he's kind of scary.
Yeah. Yes. I'm not sure whether I like him or not. I didn't in the first book. I didn't like him in the first book.
Oh.
So, and then this one I thought, well, he's doing some things that are very supportive to Alana.
Yeah.
So I liked him a little bit more in this book. But then I'm like, wait a minute.
Yes.
I don't know. He just seems a little too power hungry.
Yeah. I think he adds a layer of, I feel like there's not a lot of subtlety with certain characters, and Tom and Duke Roger are two of those characters that are like not subtle at all. but I feel like he brings an interesting dynamic into it because you're not really sure what he's gonna do. Like he clearly is like out to protect number one, and that's it. But he loves Alana, So it's like I feel like we're playing with fire with Tom. So, and yes, spoilers for later books.
What was her the guy that came with her that from home to the
George?
top? No, the one that came with her from
Coram.
I missed him being in this book more because
yes.
he was back taking care of things, which that was a little strange too. Like we heard so much about Alana's father in the first book and just how little he was in their lives and how wrapped up he was in his, studies and all of that kind of thing. And yet when he dies, it's a blip on the page, and we don't, that we kind of find out about it after the fact, and Coram's already gone, and Tom's going to be in charge, and
I could have felt the opposite. I felt like, oh, we didn't really get to know the dad at all. We never meet him. It's all like off stage. And so I feel like she's just like, I'm just conveniently cutting him out so we never have to talk about him again. That's how I felt about it. I feel like Miles and Coram are the fathers, but
right.
Oh, were you talking about Coram? Like how we got so much more?
Yeah, I'm just saying that it was just so odd that, I mean, we didn't hear about a funeral, we didn't hear about a will, we didn't hear, any of that kind of thing. It was just, okay, this has happened and this is what's happening now. Kind of thing, rather than.
I feel like there's a lot of moments like that in this book where it just skips over stuff and I'm like, oh, but that happened. That can we go back and explore that for a minute?
That's kind of what I meant by time jumps when I said
you're
that
right.
we had some big time jumps in here.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. Yes. Oh, but that blip with the dad just shows how neglectful and not involved he was. Yeah, exactly. She doesn't care about him and he doesn't care about her. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, I didn't even really, we don't have a relationship is kind of the vibe I get. So if he dies, it doesn't really affect her. Like Miles and Coram are much more her dad.
I think that what I was wanting was to, because I mean, there were some letters in Alana, that had to be like smudged over kind of thing. And I think I just wish that Alana would have been able to say, look at who I am, look at what I've done, kind of, with her dad.
For some closure. Yeah. There isn't really any closure. That's really true. It's just, he's gone.
Right. Whack. So I kind of wish that she would have been able to like visit him on his sick bed and say, this is what I've been doing. And you didn't think that girls were anything or girls were able or any of that. And yet look at what I've done and look at what I've become. So anyway, that's not what I like, though. We're not in that section.
That's okay. I think
I'm jumping ahead.
Dia's rewriting it. She's rewriting the book.
I would rewrite this in so many ways. I think it would have been really cool if she would have gone to the nunnery and become a warrior nun. I think that would have been awesome. I'm serious.
I feel like there is another book series that's like that. I'll have to send it to you. She's like a warrior nun. But yeah, she talks about in the afterword how frustrated she got with Joan of Arc because Joan of Arc was not actually on the battlefield, but but also was celibate. And so I feel like there is a reverence for the gods in these books, which I find a little bit on the rarer side. So I like that. That's pretty interesting. There was a quote from the first book that I didn't even talk about, but I think it's Miles talking about how I think it's unwise to leave the gods out of our education, considering how involved they are with our lives. But she was clearly not interested in writing a religious character. But there are like definite interactions with the gods in this series, which I find interesting and pretty cool, actually.
Emily, one of the things you'll find out about me is I like closure. I like resolve. I like justice. I like these things.
That would have made it a better book for Dia.
Yeah, for me, not necessarily for everybody, just for me.
And that's what we're here to talk about. So that's perfect. That is perfect. That's why I invited you ladies on, and why I'm so glad Emily's here, so we can all discuss our thoughts on it. Because I knew this book would be divisive. So, me too. Okay. Oh, I liked how Alana's opinion of war went from sort of. How should we say it was sort of academic until she goes on the battlefield, meets the soldiers she cares about, serves in a hospital, and then she's like, yeah, war is awful. And that really changes her as a person. I like that because it's not glamorizing or glorifying war. Like, she's like, somebody needs to be the law enforcement. I'm training to be that person, but I don't have to like violence. And I feel like that's really a strong message in these books.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
No gratuitous violence. Do you guys, what time do you need to get going? Because I don't want to keep you for too long. I can sit here all day and talk.
Yeah, I need to go in about a half hour. So.
Okay, perfect. How about you, Victoria? How long do you have?
I'm good. Yeah, a half hour. A half hour is fine for me.
Perfect. Okay. Excellent. Well, I feel like we're covering a lot of ground here. So, and I did like as well that as much as we talked about the romance, it wasn't actually like the focus of the book, even though it's like focused on this part of her development. The book is, it's not a romantasy. I would still say it's definitely a book about a girl learning how to be a warrior primarily. The romance is a subplot, and I do like that. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, it definitely focuses. It's still epic fantasy by definition. The romance element is just more in the second book than it was in the first book. But yeah, I would agree. I don't think it overpowers, but I do think it encroaches upon being the center of attention more than I think it needed to be.
Interesting. I felt like it wasn't until the end that there was really hardly any. I mean, there was like some kissing earlier on that there were some questionable moments with the kissing, but I didn't feel like, I don't know. At the end, definitely there's a lot more about it, but yeah, I didn't feel like it took too much center stage, but what was there was distasteful. And so that did come out of nowhere and be like, what? For book 2 and what was originally, when I started this read along in my head, still a middle grade series. Clearly not. Any other things you like that you want to talk about, or maybe any favorite moments you want to talk about?
I loved when Faithful talked to her the first time. And she I loved that. And just how she got to really like that just endeared him to her even more, and I just love their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
um and that it's going to just continue to grow, I'm sure. um
Yes.
I kind of wish that she had the same ability with Moonlight that she had with Faithful,
Oh, yeah.
where she could hear his thoughts too.
I
That'd
think
be
you might love the second series. The next series that we're gonna read, if you're like really into like the animal human bond, like the second series is gonna be your jam.
I think it's interesting that on my cover they don't put the cat. Well, actually, the cat is on her shoulder,
Yeah.
but like you don't even like the horse is the focus. So it's like
That
too
is
bad we couldn't talk to the horse.
And on
Yeah.
the last book, the sword was more the front and center,
Yes.
right? In your series,
I think so.
I think that
That's a
yeah.
good point. The first cover was more appropriate in your series.
Mhm,
Oh, that's
mhm.
a really interesting point, yeah.
So far she's got Moonlight, Lightning, and Faithful from basically from the goddess, right? Those are three that have basically come from. I mean, Moonlight was basically from George, but I'm wondering if
Mm.
the goddess didn't just kind of use George.
We need to make sure we outfit this avatar. Not an avatar, but yeah.
And and the amulet.
Oh,
And
yeah, you're right. The Ember Stone thing. Good point. That helps her see. We didn't even talk about that. It helps her see other people's magic.
yeah,
That's pretty
yeah,
cool. I like that.
That's really useful once she figures it out. It takes her a
yeah.
while to figure it out.
Yeah, it's not till towards the end when she really uncovers what it does.
Mm.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that's what helps her figure out
Yeah.
Roger, right?
Yes, it is. Because she sees there's Fable on her shoulders. Yeah. Yeah. It's the Emberstone that she sees Roger's color, his magical color, the purple or the blue. I can't remember.
I thought it was orange.
Orange.
Oh yeah. It's orange. You're right.
Yeah, his magic shows up orange, I think.
Thank you. Yeah. That's right. Okay. Let me see. Why didn't the goddess tell her? I know. Yeah. Why didn't she? She told her everything else.
That would have saved some time.
Yeah. If you really want her to go after Roger, help her figure out some proof. Okay. Let me see. Was there anything else? The scene where Alana has to face John and George simultaneously in a dress, the first time she wears a dress with Mistress Cooper. I love that scene. That was really funny. That was probably one of my favorite moments. The ending, of course, was one of my favorite moments when she gets her shield and then she rides off with Coram and says, "Let's go have an adventure." That just heralds fun things. Those are fun moments. And I loved that Miles was the first person she told about meeting the goddess and getting the stone from her. Considering she doesn't tell him about her sex until the very end. It's nice that she reveals the goddess thing to him first.
I agree.
There was a lot of really good moments.
I will say I'm gonna say that I actually liked George when he professes his love. And I know Emily, it looks like Emily and I disagree on this. But I actually liked the sentiment of like, I know you're not ready. I will wait for you, but like you're the only girl for me. Like I thought that was really sweet. It's because that's basically what he's saying. Is like I have chosen you, but I know you haven't chosen me, but I'm gonna wait until you do. Now I think that he might come a little more aggressive than probably. I think that's the part that we don't like is that it's a little bit more on the aggressive side of that. But like that, the sentiment itself, I thought was sweet. And so I was like, okay, like I think I'm Team George here. And then and then just more stuff started happening that I was like, oh no, I don't like any of this. But
yeah. I don't think at the end of this book, I am not Team George or Team Jonathan.
yeah, I
what did you say on here? I'm Team wait for somebody else.
Yes. Yes, that was the question. Are you Team George, Team John, or Team wait for somebody else?
I'm not Team John at all now. I'm like, John has upset me.
I agree with you about George's proposal. I thought that was incredibly sweet. The fact that he's going to change his entire profession and worldview to be with
he's like, I'll settle down. Like, I can be not a thief and settle down.
Yeah. He has the long term in view, whereas John, I feel like maybe he thinks he can convince her. I want you to be queen, but like he knows that that's not what she wants. So, but he doesn't actually say any of that. He's like, well, we belong to each other, so we should be having sex. Like that's his opinion of it. And so he starts undressing her without even asking. Yeah. So his attitude is really different, more possessive even than George's, and way less long term. You know, he doesn't have the long term in mind, even though he's like, I would talk of marriage to you, but I think that would scare you away. Yeah, because she doesn't want to be queen. Like, you have to marry someone who's going to be queen. So, you know, that, you know, at least right now, her goal is leave the palace and be a knight. Nowhere in there is there queen. But, you know, things could change. We'll have to see how she changes as a person as the series goes on. But
we didn't talk at all about Delia.
Yeah.
You don't like Delia.
I knew she was bad news from the very, very beginning. Like, really? I called it. When I first read her, I was like, oh, she's on the bad side. She's on the dark side.
You knew. So, okay. I want to say, I feel like this book was really, really predictable, but that was one thing that I didn't really remember. I was like, who is this woman? I don't remember her at all, but it sounds like you kind of knew she was bad news from the beginning.
Well, I don't know if we're going to hear about her in the next book or not. But as far as when she showed up in this book and she was like, cozying up to Alana and doing like the flirty, you know, trying to make the other guys jealous or whatever, make Jonathan jealous. I just thought she has some other motive. There's got to be something else going on here. And so I immediately thought, there's no way this is going to end well for her.
For her, I like that.
I thought, the reveal that she's in cahoots with Duke Roger was interesting, and I thought a good twist to her character.
It made sense to me in retrospect, and I didn't see it at all at first. I was like, oh, it's a surprise, even though I've read this series before, and I find the book a bit predictable. That was still a surprise to me. Did you guys also find it somewhat predictable in any way, or were you like, no, actually, everything was a surprise to me? What did you guys think?
I didn't really assume anything going in, other than, like, I know that Alana overcomes things because there's 2 more books.
Yes.
But I didn't really go in with expectations or predictions.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm not really one who can judge if it's predictable since I have read it before. So
yeah.
I felt like it was predictable, but I didn't. There were some reveals that happened in this book that I thought. I think this book could have been taken and split in half, and half of it gone to the first book and half of it gone to the next book. and made it a 3-book series instead of,
Yeah.
because it just felt like some of these things that happened in this book would have been a natural ending to the last book, or would have been a good cliffhanger to end on to lead you into the next book. But I did feel like it was predictable, but there were still enough good, like, surprises in that predictability. So I knew that, Alana was going to have to reveal that she was a girl. Did I expect her to do that to people ahead of time? No. Did I expect that she was going to do it in the way that it happened with the king and queen? No. Or with Tom announcing it.
Yeah.
She's actually my sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that there were some surprises within the predictability. So
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear that. So the plot wasn't really a complaint for you guys at all. It sounds like
it was the plot's very loose.
Yeah.
In this book, I don't think the plot is real tight in this book. So
yeah, I agree with that.
the plot itself is a surprise. Oh, maybe this is the plot. Oh, maybe
we're trying to figure out what exactly is the plot.
Yeah, like all the subplots. Remember, all the subplots link together, and
Totally agree.
Oh yes. Okay, I understand.
Okay, so we're both Team George. I'm basically Team George. There were just like, there's just some things, Again, it was like I would like be all in on something, and then there would be a thing, and I was like, I can't now. Like I can't root for that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I do love George as a character. I just did not love the
I feel like if they were presented to us as flaws, I would be like, okay, I can get behind that. They know it's a flaw, but nobody seems to know it's a flaw. Everybody seems to think it's real. I mean, Alana's clearly uncomfortable with it. So, yeah. But I'm glad that he's very upfront about his feelings, because unlike somebody else we could mention, he's clearly thinking of the future. Okay.
Another thing I think that is that was a lot of buildup that didn't feel like it had enough weight to it. In the aftermath was the ordeal.
Yeah.
We had all of this buildup of all of these people that had gone before her that had this just emotionally traumatizing experience, and she goes out of it. She's emotionally traumatized. We see that, but
it was really quick.
It was really quick. And she's on to how can I take down Roger. And so, I just felt like it needed a little bit more pause there and weight added to what she was going through and what she was wrestling through. She seems a little too perfect in this book. So
yes.
Even though she's this wonderful character and we all really love her, I think that there's just a little too much of a I'm just going to snap out of it, move on, and all of these kinds of things, instead of really sitting in those emotions, in those feelings, in those situations, and showing us the humanness, I guess, of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a super introspective book, I guess, I would say. There's certain things that she's learning about herself, but the ending in particular is like really fast action, just like action.
One after another.
Yeah, there's not a lot of flaws.
Emily's comment is actually what I was thinking of, like, are we gonna see like PTSD in book 3 from the ordeal? Like maybe we don't deal with it in book 2, but maybe we do in book 3, and maybe we'll see the results of that. Maybe not. I don't know.
I feel like that makes sense. I don't remember very well. Like I didn't remember the content of this hardly at all, but I do remember some of the content of book 3. And it's kind of like with this one where it just kind of picks up where it left off. I mean, there's like a year in between the books, but it really doesn't feel like 4 separate books in my head. I know kind of the whole story. And so I feel like there wasn't a long pause. They call it scene and then reaction or something. When you're writing a story, you need to have a scene and then you need to have the character react to what just happened in the previous scene. And there wasn't really like a reaction yet emotionally.
Yeah.
It was just like more scene, lots of scene. So yeah, hopefully this the next book. Thank you for bringing that up, Emily. Hopefully the next book will. So Dia touched on this, but I didn't feel like there were a lot of flaws, and I feel like that is one weakness I feel like of Tamora Pierce's herons. They have psychological weaknesses and psychological flaws, but they don't have moral weaknesses and flaws that are like the focus of overcoming them.
To me, Alana's flaw that I thought that I was supposed to get from this was that she won't allow herself to be loved. That's what, at least from like, that's what I felt like the author was telling me was her flaw, was that she doesn't see the people in her life that love her, and she doesn't accept love. Other than that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what else I was supposed to get as far as flaws.
She has like fears of like her magic in the first book, but I feel like she's overcome that pretty well,
fear of her magic. Yeah, there's still an element of that.
So maybe I guess each book maybe has her own fear. I don't remember very well how that works exactly. But as far as like moral flaw, she mentioned Alana's jealousy of Delia as a flaw, and I was like, "Is that a flaw though?" Like, I don't know that I don't classify that as a flaw.
I don't think so either, because Delia is a bad character. Like, you're not supposed to like Delia.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's odd.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Yeah, and I think 100% what you said. Alana, one of her flaws is really she doesn't see herself very clearly or value herself very much because of the trauma of not having a loving parent raising her. And so that's why she's so confused when she has this outpouring of love and gifts. But she's working on overcoming that because she is asking for help, like from Mrs. Cooper. She tells Miles she loves him. And by the end, she's like actually almost regretting her decision to leave. Like that's been her plan all along, and she was looking forward to it. But by the end, she's kind of like, I don't even really want to leave. I don't even really want to leave, which is really contrasted with Tom, because his development, I think Emily mentioned this earlier, their development is opposite. Alana is responding to her trauma by healing from it, and Tom is responding to his trauma by never developing emotional bonds with anybody, and instead just pouring into his power and becoming completely self-absorbed.
I forget who he was talking to, but there's a character in the book who says to Tom, like, "Oh, it's your pride. It's like you have a lot of pride." That's like directly tells him what his flaw is. Was it George? I don't remember who tells him that.
It might have been George. I remember Alana says you're going to be really lonely.
Yeah, maybe it was even Alana. I don't remember who says that.
I think I know the part of the book you're talking about, though. That's completely weird. And maybe it was one of the Mithrin priests who tells him that. I don't know. I feel like a priest would know.
Yeah, should anyway.
Good to know. Yeah, so whereas Alana has trouble with her self-image, Alana has the opposite, or Tom has the opposite problem of never thinking of anybody but himself. So she learns to love, he does not. Emily knows what you're talking about as well.
That's probably why I couldn't remember, because it was like a very minor character who was talking.
Right.
Yes, that's exactly right, Emily. It's any type of relationship, she just struggles with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's what I would say her flaws. And I feel like I feel like Tamora Pierce would agree with the relationship struggles there. So that's probably, but it was just funny that she mentioned jealousy as one of Alana's flaws. I was like, I don't really know that I would classify that as Alana's flaw.
Yeah, I wouldn't have said that was a main one.
Yeah. Do you guys think that after 50 years, this theory, originally it really did stand out, but would you say it still stands out in the glut of female-led fantasies that we have today? And if not, why not?
That's such a good word, glut.
It is. It's a great word. You need to remember that one for Mad Libs coming up.
Thank you.
I don't think that it stands out today. I can understand how it would have stood out when it was written, but I think the way that it would stand out today is more what we've been talking about, in just that it doesn't deal with things the way that we would deal with them today. So, the way that the boys are treating her in this quote unquote love romance kind of thing, or just there's some different things like that I wonder if it stands out for the wrong reasons. Does that make sense? But as far as like female-led fantasy and stuff, I don't think this is. I think this has been done several times now, where girl wants to do something that only boys can do, so therefore she goes and figures out a way to make it happen and ends up being marvelous at it, and so I think that it's been done many times now, and so I don't think it necessarily stands out from the crowd in that way.
I would agree. I think that it's probably also been done better since, and I think it's still fun to look at the pioneers of a certain genre or a certain theme or like a certain character, and Tamora Pierce is definitely one of those pioneers. It's just, the thing about pioneers is that now everyone has taken that and built upon it, and even written things that I would probably enjoy more. So I still think it's worth reading if you are like a reader of that genre and you enjoy that. I think I always love going back to like where things came from.
The impetus of it.
But I don't like, for me so far, this is not a series I would put in the hands of a young person and be like, this is the one, I think there would be other things I would put in their hand first.
Oh, thank you, Emily. 40 years. I meant 40 years, not 50. Let's see. I think if this was written today, no one would question her desire not to be married. And if she chose a sexual relationship, no one would question how many people she chose to be with. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I would question it. I would still question it at the age that this is published for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's really where it breaks down for me is who is this marketed to, and does it work in that way?
I think, yeah, it probably wouldn't. We would still be. I don't know that if this was published today, I'm not sure I'd be like, let's have a whole read along about it. But I think because of the place that it holds as like the first or like the very early prototype of a lot of what we see in today's fantasy, it's worth reading and discussing, like Victoria said. So, but yeah, if it was published today with these things, I'm not
doubt
sure
that we would put an emphasis. If it was written today, I doubt that there would be an emphasis on not getting married. You know,
Yeah.
she would just go to become a knight. Who cares whether she gets married or not, you know?
Right.
So I don't think there would be that emphasis there. And as far as the sexual relationship goes, if it was written today, the gender thing probably wouldn't be revealed either, and they would probably still, hook up.
And she might not have just been a woman hating her gender. She might have been like transgender or something like that. She probably would have been a different person. So definitely it has like hallmarks of its time to me, which probably sets it apart in that way. That's interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
We've advanced on that issue.
Yeah.
I just realized I guess it's time to go. Sorry, I just realized we're a minute over.
That's
so
okay.
I will wrap this up. And there's probably not even room for closing thoughts, but just thank you all so much for coming and discussing this with me. I'm really excited for our next one. We will be reading book 3 next, and I think our live show will actually be not this month, but next month. So we'll be reading it this month, and we'll have a discussion next month. So we hope to see you there, and yeah, I hope you enjoy book 3. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Thank you to our co-hosts.